Yeah, I think all of our babies are geniuses. I truly believe that. Um, I think it's unfortunate that most of our babies don't live long enough to find their genius thing or to develop that genius thing. And we need to change that. And I think also, a lot of us turn our genius off because of the pressures of society to tell you to look away or act a certain way, or because we want to fit in and be cool and all of these things. And I want to tell the babies, don't turn that genius off. That's your genius. It was given to you. It's your special gift. Don't turn it off. Develop that genius. So my name is Tyree Barnes. I'm a Newark native, 31 years old, and I'm an educator, school leader here in the city of Newark. I lead one of the charter schools here in Newark, and I have a great job doing it. Yeah, my plan was to eventually retire to education, become a music teacher. I got bit by the bug. I was a mentor in college. I went to Rider University, and then after that, it's like college graduate searching for something to do, figure out what the direction of my life would be, and I found the opportunity in Washington D.C. Through this program they had, working with the youth, working with children, and I was going to take that that option. And my mom told me. I remember she was like, "You're gonna go all the way to DC to help kids that need your support, when those same kids that need your help and support and guidance are right here in Newark." And so, that really resonated with me. I started looking for opportunities here in the city, and I found one with the charter school. I became a tutor, and I just worked really hard, learned a lot, and then, a few years later, I was directing my own campus, or co-directing my own campus with my co-director, and as they say, the rest is history. Education is important to me for a number of reasons. One, I think just coming up in the environment that we came up in, I think education is a tool that can help us change the trajectory of our lives. And when I say us, I mean people that grew up in the neighborhoods like I grew up in Newark, like Trenton, like Baltimore, like Chicago. People that are coming from these very challenging circumstances, drugs, crime, poverty, these types of situations, a lot of people don't make it out of. And I think just a high quality education could help give these people a fighting chance, just like it did for me. And I want to see my brothers and sisters in these communities have that chance at survival and have the life that they desire, because it's possible. My childhood was a challenging one. I'm the third child of six. Got two brothers and three sisters, and we're all born here in Newark. And very, very early in my childhood, my mom, decided to make a tough decision, and she was struggling with us to raise us as children. Single parent, no job, six kids, welfare. What am I gonna do? And it's the competition of, am I gonna lose them to the streets? Like, how am I gonna be able to provide for them when I can't economically and financially provide for them at this point in my life? And so, in addition to that, specifically to my brothers and myself, my mom was very concerned about us just not having a male role model in our lives, right? Dad wasn't around at the time. And so she struggled with that after, eviction, sleeping in the parks, sleeping in abandoned apartments, living in shelters. My mom decided to make a tough decision, and all of her sons went to live with someone else. That was pretty challenging. That was about, I had to be around 8 or 9 years old when that happened, and that kind of, opened the next chapter of the book. And so that was the challenge of a childhood experience, and what led to everything else. I think a few things prevented me from getting caught up in the streets. I think the first thing is I lived in these neighborhoods. I've seen a lot of people getting caught up in the streets, and I was able to see the outcomes. And I think just for me, I didn't want that. And so I don't think that's a foolproof way to prevent somebody from getting caught up in the streets. But I think that was the first thing for me. Uh, I think in addition to that, I had some really strong teachers and adults and family members that even with my awkwardness or weirdness as a child, they always encouraged me to just be me. You're a little different. You're weird. So what? Do that. And they engaged me on that level as well. And I definitely dealt with like the opposite as well of being criticized and made fun of and all of those things for being weird and just rather do wanting to do more academics or schoolwork instead of playing manhunt outside or playing basketball as a child. But I think those adults that were pouring into me in terms of encouraging me to just be myself, it went a long way. And I took that advantage to heart, or I took I took that advice to heart. And I feel strong about my identity, and I love who I am, and I think that's something that needs to be encouraged in the youth of today, right? Each of us are individuals, and we all have something special to offer. Oftentimes, we sacrifice that thing in our individuality for whatever reason, right? Whether it's to fit in or to find a sense of community, to find a sense of what we perceive as value or love. And we sacrifice that genius that we have to offer to the world. And I want to make sure that that genius is not sacrificed or squandered. I want to contribute to making sure that that genius is developed, and that our babies can have the life that they deserve and that they want, and that the world becomes a better place as a result of it. I'd say that my biggest challenge in education has been my biggest challenge in life thus far, and probably will remain my biggest challenge in life. My first year as a teacher, a few weeks into teaching, and if for all the educators out there, one, thank you for your service. We appreciate you and we need you now more than ever. But your first year of teaching is challenging. It's always something, things are just coming at you super fast and you're just trying to figure it out. It's a complete lifestyle change from anything, I believe. And my first year of teaching, my mom was really sick. My mom had been sick for a long time. But my first year of teaching, I'm also going to school to study teaching. And I'm just like super stressed out all the time, always doing something. Work is always happening. Mom's sick, going back and forth, trying to figure that out. And I'll never forget it. I was super stressed out. I was so stressed out that my supervisor and the school director at that time, they pulled me to an office. It was a Thursday, and they were like, we wrote you off the schedule for tomorrow. Don't come in. And I was, being the young go-getter that I am, I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm not stressed. I can handle this. I can manage it. I'll be in. And they were adamant, and they wrote me off the schedule, and they just was like, you need to take a day off. And I was really stressed at that time. It was a lot going on. And after some back and forth, I finally conceded. I was like, all right, I won't come in tomorrow. And the next day, Friday, went to visit my mom. All my siblings were there, and her situation was progressively getting worse. And long story short, it just so happened the way the universe works. I wasn't working that day. My brothers and sisters were in town. My baby sister was back from school, so she was in town, and we were at my mom's house that day. And that day, September 26th, that day in the bedroom, surrounded by all 6 of her children, she passed away. Yep. And that was that was it. My world pretty much crumbled at that point. And that was just hard to manage, personally, as a man, specifically connected to the relationship that we had, and still being an educator, this high pace, high stress environment and just trying to figure out how do I manage? What do I do now? And I didn't know what to do. I didn't. I struggled. But they say old habits die hard. So I naturally resorted to, what I do when I get super stressed out, I don't know the answers, I can't figure it out. I went back to work. A few days later, I was back to work. And I literally, unhealthy as it might have been, I pretty much, I drowned myself in the work. And then when I left work, we were working on, the plans. What's the burial? What's the plans? How we manage these things? What's going on? And that was it. And it took me a really long time to actually even process it. It was too much for me. And so I never really, not never, but in the moment, I didn't process it. It took a long time. I dealt with it like I dealt with anything else. I dealt with it like I dealt with, being separated from my siblings as a child. This is the fact. This is what it is. Take it as fact and let's move on. And I dealt with it that way because I couldn't handle it emotionally. And it's still to this day, it's the hardest moment of my life. Putting her body in the ground is like the hardest day ever. It's the toughest time in education too. Me figuring out how am I gonna teach? How am I gonna continue at this pace with all of this that I'm going through? I worked through it. I'd say two really important parts of that story is that one, I was fortunate enough in the year before my mom passed away, I would spend a lot of time with her. I would go visit her a lot. She was in and out of the hospital, and I would go visit her a lot. Luckily, one of the hospitals that she was at one point was very close to where I was living at the time, and so and very close to where I was working. And so I would literally, get up in the morning. I had to be to work at 6:45. Get up in the morning, go to work, work until 5 or 6. Go home, shower, change clothes, and then I would just walk back over to the hospital. And many nights I don't know if I was supposed to, but many nights I just spent the night in the hospital and stayed with her. And we had a bunch of conversations before it started to really get bad. We had a lot of conversations. We talked about my childhood and that separation, and she gave me some understanding. And she, she expressed how challenging it was for her too, and that she had to make a decision. What was best? What was going to be best for her kids? What was going to give them a shot at life? Give us a shot at life? And it wasn't 100% sitting well with her, but she always felt that was the right decision. And in hindsight now, I got to be honest, man. I some days I just wake up and just chuckle about a mother's wisdom. How could she have known? How sometimes I look at my life and people that I grew up with, my friends, a lot of their lives are totally different than mine, and I credit a lot of that just to that tough decision. And it's how could she have known at that time that I'm gonna make this decision that I really don't want to make, but it's gonna give my children the best shot at life? And she was right. So that really blows me away. It really blows me away. I think about it often. And I think the biggest thing that helped me get through that moment and those moments, next to my siblings and just being able to talk to my brothers and sisters all the time and laugh with them and go to the cemetery and tell jokes and connect with them in that way is, I talk to my students about it. I remember every Monday morning we would have the conversation 5 minutes before we jumped into the math, because we was going to get to the math. That was the thing. What'd you do this weekend? And eventually, they started asking me what I did this weekend. And then they started telling me oh, Mr. Barnes, did you go see your mom this weekend? How's your brother doing? How's your sisters doing? And we really developed that relationship as teacher and student. And I think that year and in those moments, I really learned the value of teachers having relationships with their students. When you have that positive relationships, those positive relationships, students value you. They feel valued by you. They learn from you. They listen to you. They're children. They're gonna make mistakes. We're all gonna make mistakes. They're more likely to improve them because you're correcting them. And so that really helped me get through that tough moment in education and that tough moment in my life. It's a big deal. I reflect on it often. Being a school leader at such a young age is challenging, definitely. I think there's a certain perception that comes with age, right? You're young, you don't know as much, you haven't lived as much of a life, and those things are challenging. But I think there's also positives to that as well. Fresh ideas, different experiences, growing up in a different time, growing up with relation to different technology, and kind of living in that space. So it's challenging. Definitely got to learn how to manage relationships. I think is a big thing, whether it's in the school or any industry. But it's had its challenges, and what I would say is that every job's going to come with its challenges. Every leadership position is going to come with their challenges. But I think it's particularly in education, as long as you stay committed to doing right by children, then the rest it's all water under the bridge, as they say, right? Like that's the purpose. That's why we're here. And whether you're 26 like I was when I got the position, or you're 46, people that are committed to children and committed to making sure that children get a high quality education, then those are the people for the position. And I'm just grateful that people thought that I was that, and I'm grateful for that. Yeah, as a kid, I was the weird kid, as you would call it. I'm also the middle child, so I definitely embody some of the principles of the middle child syndrome. But I was, a little awkward. Wasn't really into sports too much. Was very athletic. I think it's part of our genetic makeup for my brothers and sisters, but it wasn't my first priority. I really got into learning early, and I'm lucky that I had some teachers in my early childhood that was able to identify some of my intellectual abilities. And so, very young, before the separation before my family was separated, I got invited to be a part of the Gifted and Talented program at another school. So all of my siblings, we all went to the same elementary school, but at this point, maybe this is like first or second grade, I got this opportunity to do this Gifted and Talented program. My mom and I talked about it. I was like, yeah, I want to do it. And so I ended up transferring schools. And then from there, I went to a new school that had this Gifted and Talented program that just challenged us in a myriad of different critical thinking ways. And I loved it. And I struggled at times. It was very challenging, but I loved it. And I really fell in love with the idea of learning at that point. So, I would get up early. School would provide me bus tickets. I'd take the bus and I go back and forth to school. And school just became a really important thing for me. Keeping my books. Didn't do a lot of reading at that time. I tried to. That wasn't my specific strength. So I kind of, as a youth, I stayed away from it. Now I'm an avid reader, but learned a lot and really fell in love with the idea of education at that point, or more specifically, like the idea of learning at that point. It's kind of been a underlying thread, if you will, throughout the rest of my life. In hindsight, I understand more of how I was personally affected by those traumas. As a kid, I didn't get it. It was what it was, and that's just how I dealt with life as a teenager, specifically. Like, it was what it was. But in reflection, when you grow up, become more mature, you can think about these things. I've always had a pressing feeling on the inside. How could the people that are supposed to love me the most give me away? And that's pretty much the feeling that I had growing up, right? Dad wasn't there. Around 8 years old, mom's like, you go live with them. I didn't know why. Nobody explained anything to me, sat me down and said, listen, this is the situation, this is the plan. Nope. One day I was here, and the next day I was, living with someone else and trying to adapt and cope with that. And think those things are like grounded in my personality, my spirit, my fighting chance, my hopes, and the work that I do. And I think for me, it was very important as an adult man to deal with those things just head on and kind of stop running from them. I think I ran from them for a long time for my life, and just was head down, just work, survive, so that you can build an opportunity for yourself, make some money, get out the hood. And I think, in my early 20s, mid 20s, I realized it was more than that, and I needed to kind of do that self-work, and I did. And it's been helpful, and I'm still doing it. It's an ongoing process. And it's work. That's what I'll say about it. It's work. Yeah, my sense of purpose kind of comes from that. Yeah, I think kind of being in that environment and not having that attachment to feeling the love and the sense of family in that way, especially from like your mom and your dad. I've always been on a mission to prove that I belong, I have purpose, I'm good, I'm worth it, I'm worthy. And I didn't realize that was my driving force as a child. But now as an adult man, I know that was the thing that was truly driving me. It's dare I say it, it's a sense of proof, a sense of proving your self-worth. And I had to get to that place through a lot of self-work. But it's definitely been a driving factor in my life, and it's helped me both professionally, but as well as just being a man, to grow and develop in that way, being able to recognize those things and deal with those things head on. So self-work is important. Absolutely important. Black Genius brand is a lifestyle brand that we created that is dedicated to the social, cultural, emotional, and economic development of urban Black and brown youth. That's the purpose. We try to find creative ways to do that in the community, whether it's doing a turkey giveaway, turkey drive, or during the North Genius Pool. So we just try to find creative ways to empower and uplift those scholars, those children in the urban community. I think it's important, I think it's overlooked, and we think there's a lot of overlooked genius there, which is why we named it Black Genius Brand. We think that human capital is underdeveloped in those areas. There are Black geniuses living in our communities that have tremendous ideas and tremendous potential and have the next greatest inventions, the next greatest vaccines that are going to change and shape and mold the future. And too often we feel like we don't live long enough to develop that capacity within them. That genius that's living within them never reaches its full potential. And it's all of our responsibility to make sure that happens. But in order to increase that level of accountability on developing that genius, we got to shed some light on it. We have to focus on it. And not only, when we get to a place that we're able to fan that flame and develop that genius, not only are our communities going to become better, but the world is going to become better. There's genius living in these neighborhoods. I can attest to it. I see it all the time. I think I represent it very well as well. And it needs to be developed. And they need the support and the love and the guidance and the patience to develop it. And at Black Genius, we're committed to contributing to that. That's what we do, and we want to find other people that are committed to contributing to that. And we want to bring them on board too. I don't think it's awkward at all. I don't think it's awkward that I rap and make music and I'm a school leader. Do you think it's awkward that these big brands and billion-dollar companies are like paying rappers to write their jingles or to make a commercial to sell more of their product? No, it's the culture, right? And more specifically for me, I'm trying to reach children and the youth in our communities to help develop them in a way that I think will be promising for them. And if that's the culture, then you got to go to where the culture is, right? That's the language they speak, and you gotta speak to them in their language. You gotta meet them where they're at and help them develop. And so I feel no quarrels about that at all. I've been criticized, and some people have even advised against it, like, no, don't do that, you're tainting yourself. But, I know who I am, and I know what my goals are, and my plans are. And then I think beyond that, I'm pretty good at it. All right, listen. They said you were educated, you don't pull no triggers, therefore you can't rap. And I'm like, how you figure? Man, I'm slow like Nas, I do my biz like Jigga, I write my poems like Langston, my heart is big like Tigger's. I can change your whole finger, and my actions similar to the singers. Cause my melodies be avoiding felonies, and all my inner visions written in the key of life. I ain't just see it through, Keon, I had to see it twice. Wrote it all down in my mind's eye, but since my mom's died, I can't cry. I've been getting less emotional lately. I've been getting more promotions because the word is spoken to the kids, got their minds open and their hearts hoping. So what can happen if you can make it without balling or rapping? Or what would happen if you could survive through all of the clapping? Or what would happen if you could do all of the trapping? I'm a 27-year-old, well-educated black man. Growing up in poverty influenced all my actions. Going off to college taught me how to use my passion. Teach you how to pass the test. Teach you all about success. Teach you how to get your best. Teach your teacher and your teachers how to manage all this stress, man. Yeah! Very good at it. Yeah, pretty understatement. I think I'm very good at it. Got away with words. Who knows? I do have an idea of where I want to be in 10 years. But I'm not gonna tell you. I won't let the cat out the bag just yet. What I will say is that a few years back, I had a little placard on my desk, and in that, instead of putting a photo, well, it was a photo frame, it wasn't a placard. Instead of putting a photo in it, I put my 10-year plan in there. And, I wrote by year, like year 1, this is what I want to be doing. Year 2, this is what I want to be doing. Year 3, this is what I want to be doing. And I kept it on my desk. And then I forgot about it. And as things progressed and I moved jobs, and it ended up in a box somewhere. But I'll say that a few years later, I found it in my office. And lo and behold, when I looked at it and dusted it off, I was spot on. Year 10, where I said I would be, was where I was. And I said at year 10 I would be a school leader. And it worked out. So I won't tell you where I see myself in 10 years, but I will tell you that I'm already working on it. And I'm highly confident that that's exactly where I'll end up at. You can bet that.
If you black, if you genius, say, oh yeah. Put 2 fingers in the air. If you're black, if you're genius, say, oh yeah. Put 2 fingers in the air, cause I'm black, I'm a genius, I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah. Put 2 fingers in the air. If you're black, if you're genius, scream, oh yeah. Yeah, I said I'm black and I'm genius. I got the dream from the king. I got the wisdom from Malcolm. A man could change if he read. I hit my Dougie like Frederick, but the boys is my mans. So I ain't picking no cotton, I'd rather chill with my sands. The rhetoric is from Langston.